Today is May the 8th, 2017, and this is Ster with a very special guest, Kevin Annett, who is the spokesperson and the face of the ITCCS, the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State. And the ITCCS has made some remarkable messages in the past weeks. And the message of last week was a very optimistic one, where the organization stated the tide is turning, and this positive message came after serious warnings of the planned large-scale satanic rituals organized by the Ninth Circle cult that would take place worldwide that night. And this is on the night of April the 30th, and several arrests were made in Zwolle, Netherlands, Dijon, France, and Lucerne in Switzerland. In total, 19 people got arrested, 8 children got liberated, and we will speak about these recent events that the ITCCS reported about. So Kevin, welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you back. And
good to be back.
Yeah, so I was wondering, maybe we can start out briefly with explaining why the 30th of April is such an important night. It's the Satanic Festival of Beltane, or the Walpurgis Night. And why is this so significant for the Cabal, this date?
Well, we found it's interesting. There's a lot of dates that tend to happen in the spring, and when it comes to these satanic groups. April 30th, of course, was in the Irish calendar, the Gaelic people. April 30th was the 2 high points in the year, and it was a very sacred time. And so it's in a way a clue of some of the roots of the Ninth Circle, because the Catholic Church, when they went into Ireland, Scotland, in that area, would take these traditional sacred festivals and then turn them around and use them for their own purposes. So April 30th, as one of the sacred Irish days, was then perverted into something else. They literally captured the energy of that day and turned it around. An example of that is one of the spots where the Ninth Circle were reported to be planning one of these rituals was on the hill of Tara in central Ireland. And that was the site of one of the White Mare goddess, one of the goddesses in the Irish pantheon. And it was near a sacred valley right next to a center run by Opus Dei, which is a very secret cult within the Catholic Church, tied to the Ninth Circle and a lot of crimes around the world. And there was about 4 years ago, the Irish government suddenly announced they were running a highway right through this sacred valley, to destroy one of the most sacred places in Irish history. And this highway, it turned out, one of the groups lobbying for this highway to destroy the sacred site were the Opus Dei, the Catholic Church. And so this is an example of how the energy is utilized, destroying traditional energy and then capturing that and using it for their purposes. It's part of the purpose of these Ninth Circle claims.
Right. And then there's obviously a lot of stuff going on also on the financial side of things, and countries claiming sovereignty again. So they're sort of with their backs to the corner. So they're in a panic mode a little bit.
Very much.
Yes. So about the arrests, the organization stated that you were most successful at the locations that were not disclosed beforehand.
Right.
The surprise element was an important factor. I was wondering, what did the teams encounter when they went to these locations? Can you describe what they found there?
Well, some of it can't be disclosed because they hope to use the information in a legal case. The 19 people arrested apparently are still in police custody, and we don't know if the prosecutors are laying charges yet or not. But we have our own independent record of it because we didn't rely on the government or the police ultimately to do anything with it, because that's been their record. They just sit on these things or help the perpetrators. But according to the evidence we found, and I've looked at some of this, some of the video material in that, the worst stuff was found in Zwolle.
Mm-hmm.
As we were informed, there's a series of cold rooms where they keep the remains of children. So there were body parts of young children, including babies, held in refrigerators. These were, yeah, now these are used for cannibalistic purposes as other parts of the ritual and other things. Also, there were not just torture devices, but I don't think this was mentioned in the report. There was all sorts of video equipment, photographic equipment, pornographic materials found, and material linking. There was references to various people who we've never heard about. So that is being analyzed. Some of the papers that were found are linking them to other people in Europe who we hadn't heard about. So that was an important breakthrough. And the cages the children were in were very small. They were like 2 by 3 foot cages in which these little children as young as 5 were shoved. They had been beaten, brutalized, raped, undoubtedly, and very emaciated. And so they're under medical care. So the children who were recovered, the same, not to the same degree, but in Lucerne and Dijon, there weren't body parts found, but the same kind of material, kind of the trademark of the Ninth Circle.
Mm-hmm. And if you say you found video equipment, did you also find video footage that could be?
I believe, yes, I've seen a little bit of the footage. So there was footage in the cameras, and they're still. I understand that they're still searching the premises because in these places where they do the killings, there's sealed off areas that you can't even see. There's sub-basement areas. And so you really need a whole investigative team to go in and tear the place apart. And I believe that's happening, although I haven't received a report from people we know in the police yet to see if that's going ahead or not.
Right. It was not reported, as far as I know, it was not reported in the mainstream media. I haven't found anything. I was wondering if the location that was invaded by your team and the police force, is it the same location that Annemarie van Blijenburg was describing in her testimony, the so-called hotel near Zwolle?
No, it's a different location than that. After she talked about it, as they tend to do, they move location. This spot that we had was an older spot. One of the oldest spots used by the Ninth Circle. And in fact, that's why it wasn't mentioned by the ITCCS. We didn't want to tip off the people in the area. Frankly, the areas in Rome and that we knew would be so heavily protected that it was okay to mention them because we probably knew we couldn't get in anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But these sites we knew were pretty definite we didn't mention, and it paid off. You know, it meant that they weren't warned beforehand.
Right. But that's an amazing breakthrough, and the team is very brave to have the courage to face this kind of horror, because that must have been very shocking to find it.
Well, the people in these teams have encountered it before. Some of them are retired police, some military. They're professionals, and the real breakthrough too, there were a number of breakthroughs. The fact that the local police cooperated for the first time. That was a really important step, because then you find that the police feel they have to start responding more. And that's when, lives are saved. The thing about the media is you have to understand that the 6 families who control the corporate media in the world, they are closely tied in with the Ninth Circle themselves. So if this stuff is ever reported, it would only be in a way to try to denigrate it and to try to delegitimate it. That's what we found. So we say to people, we are our own media on this. We document it, we do it ourselves, because you can't rely on the so-called mainstream.
Yes. Yeah, that's why I'm really glad that we could have this conversation, because I want to put this information out there. I want the Dutch audience, I have a large Dutch audience, to know about this stuff. And I'm not a professional journalist, but it's so important to have this information out. So I'm just stepping in, because the so-called real journalists, they're not doing their job.
No. That's right.
And but I was also wondering about the children, because often you've explained that children are taken from war zones or very fragile areas where they're not very well protected. But according to the report, these in France and in the Netherlands, these were native children. So were these children abducted? Do they know where they came from?
We believe that they were from primarily hospitals and in some cases an orphanage. And I've got to look up the name of the orphanage in Amsterdam where they came from. We have that listed. I could try to look for you and send it to you later. But you see that it's easy in hospitals for either newborns or children to go missing, because in many countries, if you're an unwed, say, teen, if you're a young woman who gets pregnant and you're not married, often there's a system of confidentiality in the hospital where they urge you, and often Catholic hospitals do this, they urge the mother to give up the baby, and then the parent can't be traced. It's anonymous. And so in that setting, you can obtain a baby easily and it can never be traced to its real parent. It can literally go missing. So some of these are from hospitals. We know in one case, the child was literally abducted from their own family, and that child's been returned to their family. 3 of the 5 were immigrants. They were from Tunisia or Romania. And that's another, immigrant centers and areas like that is another hotspot for abducting children.
Right. And how did you know that this child was abducted? It was reported to the police and fitted this description?
One of our sources in the police already had a description of a missing child, and it matched right away. So they contacted him.
Yeah. And how old was this child?
They were all under 6. I don't have the specific ages, but none of them were older than 6.
No, and there were babies involved in this as well. Yeah. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we know that the criminals are still in custody. It's not sure if they will be prosecuted. There are some gatekeepers in the Dutch justice system. I mean, we've had many cases where the perpetrators were protected. We had the Robert M. case, the Marc Dutroux case in Belgium and the Netherlands. We had the Zandvoort case. And as soon as these people are connected, or these networks are connected to the elite, then they are protected and usually not prosecuted. Do you think it will be different now, or do you think that the time has changed?
It's definitely changing, and the Ninth Circle are on the defensive. In a way, that means the cover-up and the control from on top will be that much greater. We find that the pattern doesn't tend to change, that for example, somebody who reports these things tends to get targeted and victimized by the police. Mm-hmm. But now you have factions in the police who are less willing to do that, who are willing to work with us. So, in the way that the system uses divide and conquer to attack us when we're doing things, we can turn the tables and use the same on them. We are dividing at least the elements within the system, and it'll be harder now for a politician simply go ahead and cover it up. They know that the eyes of the world are on them now, and that makes a huge difference. We found that one of the ways that we're able to force the truth of genocide in Canada out was by constantly shining the light on the churches responsible. They backed down. The government had to start issuing so-called apologies. So even a small number of people can force that change. It's just a matter of being very public and very constant in what we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also the confidence it has been affected because things get exposed. And they must get very worried because there are insiders that leak information to the ITCCS. And then if they don't know who these people are, then they probably get very worried.
Well, yes, exactly. And more of those informants have actually come forward now that this has made the news. Also, as it was mentioned in the report, there was actually somebody who claimed to be representing the College of Cardinals in Rome who contacted our leadership after, and apparently they want to talk. And we don't know what that indicates, but we'll see. They're going to keep us updated about that development.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's keep me informed about that. You've made some conditions that this kind of meeting would take place outside of Italy and on your own conditions concerning safety and people present.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, in the Radio Free Canada radio show, you stated last week that Marcel Vervloesen of the Markhoven group had claimed that, or had estimated that the Androgeda network, the mafia, who provide children to the Ninth Circle network, pays about 15 million euros per month to politicians and police forces of police officers in the Netherlands alone. Is that correct?
That's what he claimed to me when I met him in it was the spring of 2014, I believe, in I think Nijmegen. He said that we were sitting at his table, and he said, "Oh, they spend at least 50 million every month in just buying politicians and police." To me, it isn't necessarily a high figure because we know there's a very similar figure in the research we've done, the way the mafia operates in Canada, especially in Montreal. A lot of their money is spent in bribing politicians and judges. And especially for something this sensitive, I wouldn't at all be surprised if it was that high.
Right. But how can you work around this then?
You don't rely on the police like we didn't. I mean, it's good when they intervene, and probably some of the police were helping us in order to spy on us as well, no doubt. I mean, there people play both sides all the time, but you become your own police, and this is why in our common law system we train and deputize common law sheriffs. We need the community trained to do these things so that we can be the enforcement. Ultimately, we have to rely on ourselves, and there's that's what we try to emphasize these days, getting people themselves to do these things.
Right. Among the people that got arrested, there were some senior members of the cult that either had been identified or arrested themselves. And what are the implications of that?
My understanding is that the top level were not arrested. There was a secondary leader. He claimed to be a secondary leader who said that he'd be willing to reveal more under certain conditions. I assume he wanted some kind of immunity in return, immunity from prosecution, but that's just a guess. So we don't, from other sources, we have a sense of some of who the high-level people are. We know they're directly connected to the high level of the Vatican and others. We mentioned the Club Lorraine as one of the spots. Both our inside sources mentioned that club. So undoubtedly those names will be coming out, but at this point, no, I don't think they'd be stupid enough to appear in a relatively small area or a small town like Zwolle or others. They tend to operate in very protected areas like in Rome at the San Lorenzo Church there and other places.
Mm-hmm. Or at you mentioned a private chateau in Belgium. That's probably the Castle Mother of Darkness that you meant?
It's undoubtedly that castle because it keeps being mentioned all the time. Toos Nieuwenhuis mentioned that the first time I interviewed her.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be the place where they have the plaques up on the wall of the severed penises of the boys they've hunted in the woods. There's all these plaques on the wall with their trophies, right. Human body parts as trophies. That shows you these people what they're like.
Yes, and I've also heard rumors that people that were close to the venue disappeared. So citizens that did their own research and entered the garden to just out of curiosity disappeared and never came back. So that's a scary place. But you also suspect that the headquarters was located there and that it was relocated as a result of the actions the ITCCS took recently.
What we were told was that, and this is a source indirectly connected to the Ninth Circle, somebody in Rome, that's really all I can say about it, but they said there's been discussion of moving the headquarters to North America. And it's probably because of all the attention it's getting in Europe. I mean, don't forget in the Marc Dutroux case, there were a lot of people protesting in the streets. You'd never find that in Canada or the US. We'd be lucky to get 20 people out to a protest about child trafficking, child killing. there's just not the interest over here, or the willingness to take on this stuff. So I think they might be doing that just to get the heat off themselves for a while because of all of this.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But the climate, the culture seems to be changing. You also mentioned in your radio show last week that someone in the Dutch parliament had raised the issue of the ninth circle, but was quickly shut up. And I was wondering, I haven't heard about it, but
No.
Was this an individual that was on in the audience, or was this a member of parliament, a politician?
Apparently it was a member of parliament, and I guess the record and the of it was completely erased, just like they did in the Dutroux case, where they had, one court record that mentioned the royal family and the other that didn't. I have no more information on that. I'm trying very hard to find out what happened with that, whether it might have been, like you say, somebody else. Like we still have to find that out. But the people we know around the government are not talking about it, which we find interesting. I don't know why that would be, but.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's well, you only need sometimes one person who has the guts to stand up and addresses it. And
Yeah.
Well,
remember what happened. I'm sorry, but do you remember what happened to Laurent Louis,
right,
when he accused Marc Rutte and the others of, being child molesters?
Yeah, it wasn't Marc Rutte. It was I think his name was Lippe.
Oh yeah, Marc Rutte was mentioned by Anne-Marie van Bienberg.
Yes, but Laurent Louis was accusing the Prime Minister of Belgium, and I forgot his name. But
yeah.
But if you come up with a name, then let me know. I'd be curious to know. Yeah, so I was also wondering about the presence of armed paramilitary units in Rome, London, Paris, Frankfurt, and Brussels and Geneva. Are we talking about private armies, or are we talking about the country's military?
Well, both. For example, Anne-Marie saw Belgian troops protecting the field where the human hunting party was going on. I would say in Belgium and Holland, it's definitely the army. Queen Beatrix's role in that would probably ensure that that's the case. When you're dealing with the Vatican, anything close to Rome, you're dealing with what's called the Holy Alliance, which is the Vatican Espionage and Assassination Bureau. They have a private army that provides papal protection.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you have private armies. They used to be called Blackwater. Now they go by a different name, but it's very common to have private police, army now. Corporations have their own, military. So it'd be easy to get mercenaries of any kind to provide that. Yeah.
As long as you have big money to pay them.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of the members of the ITCCS that were in the action teams got arrested, and most of them were released soon after. But one person was still in custody, and you haven't had any contact with this person. Is that correct?
That's right. I'm still waiting to hear from Vancouver about that. It's of great concern because Vancouver is the center on the west coast of the child trafficking trade. It's got strong links with the Chinese military, who, as you know, are deeply involved in organ trafficking. And so more than 20 years ago, when I began to interview Native people in Vancouver about the disappeared Native women, we began to hear stories of and police actually confirmed this, even though they weren't allowed to report it to the press, that women's bodies had been found missing organs. And, so I think there's that whole factor in. There's the Chinese involvement. Chinese corporations are buying up large parts of Canada. And so we think that there's that influence as well in terms of why these people go missing. They're being forced off the land to get the resources and that, just like the British did originally to the natives. Now the Chinese are doing it. Mm-hmm. But so when somebody goes missing in Vancouver, it's a serious thing because it happens all the time. And so we're doing our best. We have some lawyers there looking into it and everything, but we don't have any more information on that right now.
Yeah. Was this an individual with special information? Was there any particular reason why it was this individual and not someone else?
No, the team in Vancouver consisted of, I believe, 5 individuals. Only one of them had experience at this. The others were volunteers. And that was a problem because if you have people going in for the first time, they might lose their heads. They might say things. We don't know what happened exactly, but it wasn't the kind of professional team you had like going into Zwolle. These were like volunteers, local volunteers, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's hope this person will be returned soon and is still safe. About the assassination teams, there were new death threats issued, and on your ITCCS website it states top field secretaries have been targeted for elimination by the Ninth Circle during a private discussion of the top of the Ninth Circle leaders that took place on May the 2nd in Rome. It was stated that the highest priority for the circle had to be the eliminating once and for all of the operational leaders of the ITCCS, and that's including yourself. Now, I would think that they had already issued an assassination order years ago. So what's new now?
Well, I don't think it's new at all. If somebody's going to kill you, they don't give you a warning about it. They just do it. And I think what this is, you notice it happened on the same time that the Vatican apparently reached out to the ITCCS leadership to talk. I think it's a bargaining chip. I think it's a bargaining tactic they use to say, look, if you don't start talking to us, your people are going to disappear. But I basically, and I'm going to comment on this in upcoming shows, that I don't want people to start worrying, because if they don't ever give warnings before they kill people, that just doesn't make sense. It's not a professional way to operate. So I think it's a way to psychologically kind of pressure the ITCCS. I think it indicates that the Vatican is going to want to try to make a deal that, okay, you back off and we'll give you this. It's just politics. And, that's my reading on it.
Yes, psychology to intimidate. Yeah. It's also a sign that they feel threatened.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not worried.
Well, it's also your faith is in the hands of God, so you have spiritual protection, because otherwise you wouldn't be around anymore, and you're very careful, and you take your precautionary measures. So stay in that confidence that we have a right to deal with this issue, and we are protected. So the actions that took place really were a big blow to the Ninth Circle, and the confidence is dwindling. Can you list the signs that actually prove this, that they are losing their confidence?
I think something as simple as the number of people who are coming forward now. There's new informants we've had. Like I mentioned, the involvement of the police, the things we're just hearing on the ground from people about how the harassment they had been faced has kind of subsided a little bit. Now, this is harassment from police in various countries against people who had been leading protests, and that suddenly it's backing off a little bit. And so I think that all indicates that there's a shift in the tide happening, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so you also wrote that you're very optimistic that the Jesuit cult is collapsing, but also you made a warning that our efforts must intensify, and that the attention should not slacken. So despite the victories, the battle has not been won yet.
Exactly. And, a lion doesn't change its nature. It may stop eating for a while and back off, but it's still a lion. And it's the same with this institution. It's by nature predatory and murderous. And they might put on a different mask every now and then, but its nature remains the same. And the beast has to be killed. we have to stop that. And that can only happen from the people, infused with that divine strength, taking this action. So we've set an example, and we know other people will pick it up.
So how can people help? How can they contribute? Can they offer to be a volunteer to help out in the teams, the local teams?
There's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's support work. You can't all be on the front line, but you can be educating the community. You can be targeting Catholic churches, especially where there's these people are associated with that give back up to the Ninth Circle. We have a list of those churches in many countries. So doing those public protest actions, educating people, and also in order to take part in the teams, they have to go through a certain training. And that common law training for sheriffs, we have a program to do that now. One of our books online is, if you go to Amazon.com and put my name in, you'll see all my books. But one of them is the Common Law Training Manual, which we're having translated into different languages. If people want to take part in any of that, just write to the ITCCS office. It's itcccsoffice@gmail.com, and they can send you that. Plus, itccs.org, our website. My show yesterday on Radio Free Canada, I had an American therapist who had been treating cult survivors, Judy Byington, and she was also naming where these satanic cults operate all over the U.S. So if you go to our bbsradio.com/Radio Free Canada website, you can listen to that. All the shows are archived. And all of that is a way people can help.
Okay, yeah, well, I will put the URL below the video and the article. Thank you. Thank you very much, Kevin, for your updates. And good luck with your mission. And hopefully we'll talk soon with some more great news.
I'll keep you updated. Thank you, Ella.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.